This is the Intro to Trigonometry series, third video in the series. In this one, we're learning how to actually solve for a variable. So this is what most of your problems that you're going to see, what you're going to be doing. So it's like if you're given a triangle like this, and you got to find x. And so not just in this class, but pretty much any class down the road with trigonometry questions like this, just make this note. You will always be given three things. You're going to be given two numbers. So again, we have a number there and a number there. There's our two numbers, and you're going to be given one variable. So it's almost like a puzzle. From those three things, you have to find the variable. But it's actually a very easy way to do it if you follow all the correct steps and label the sides correctly. So let's go ahead and find x in this triangle. So over here on the right, this is our steps to solving. So again, our first step is we're going to label our sides. So again, in order, first do label the angle of focus, represented by F. Then you're going to label the hypotenuse, represented by H. Then label the opposite side of the angle, O. And then label the adjacent side, A. So again, the key, if you label your sides wrong, it's going to screw up your whole triangle. So make sure you label your sides right. So once you have everything labeled, you're going to locate the variable. Where is the variable? Third step is you're going to use your sides in your variable, and you're going to figure out which sides are you using. And then you'll realize, are you going to use the sine, cosine, or tangent function? So that's a very key part right there. Once you figure out which one you're using, you're going to plug in your numbers and variables into that function. Once they're plugged in, last step is you're going to solve algebraically. So kind of think of it as breaking it down into 5 steps. So let's go ahead and do that for this one. So first, let's label our sides. First, angle of focus, right there, it's 41. Next is hypotenuse, which is across from the 90-degree angle. So x is going to be the hypotenuse. Now I'm going to label O, opposite side of angle of focus. So it's 12, and then adjacent side is right next, and there's nothing on the adjacent side because, again, we're only given 3 things. So where's our variable? Our variable is on the hypotenuse, so we're solving for the hypotenuse. Which sides are we using? So again, as you can see, we're going to use O because we're given 12 on O, and we're going to use H because we're given a variable on H, and there's nothing on A. So since there's nothing on A, we know we're not using that. So now, are we going to use sine, cosine, or tangent? And again, let's bring those in. Sine is O over H, cosine is A over H, and tangent is O over A. So which one of these uses O and H? Well, that's going to be the sine function that uses O and H. So we can get rid of cosine and tangent, and now we can plug in everything into that function right up there. So let's go ahead and plug in. So the angle of focus is 41, so we're going to have the sine of 41 equals O over H. O is 12. H is our variable x. So now that we have it set up, let's go ahead and solve algebraically. So the first thing we're going to do when we solve algebraically is we're going to use our calculator to find the sine of 41. So you go ahead and put that into your calculator, and that's going to give us 0.65, and always set it over 1. So we got 0.65 over 1 equals 12 over x. And you always set over 1 so we can cross multiply at this point. So now we're just going to cross multiply. So we got 1 times 12 is 12. And then that equals 0.65 times x, which is 0.65x. The next step, now just a normal algebra problem. You're just solving for x. So what would you do in a normal problem? We're going to eliminate that 0.65 and isolate x. So we're going to divide both sides by 0.65. So that cancels out the 0.65. And so now we have x equals 12 divided by 0.65. Go ahead and put that in your calculator, and that gives you 18.46. So x equals 18.46. That is our answer. So we know our hypotenuse is 18.46 when given that angle and that side. Let's try one more, because again, practice makes perfect. So let's go ahead and label our sides. So we got angle of focus is x, hypotenuse is 32, opposite side is opposite of angle of focus, and there's nothing over there, and adjacent side is right next door, and so that's going to be 20. So where is the variable? Well, in this one, the variable is actually our angle. And so which sides now are we using? So we're using A and H, and there's nothing on O, so we're not using O. So which function, sine, cosine, or tangent uses A and H, and then you're going to use that one. So that's going to be cosine that uses A and H, so we can get rid of sine and tangent. And now let's plug in. So we got the cosine of angle of focus equals A over H. So let's plug in the angle first. So X is going to go inside the parentheses, equals A over H. So we know A is 20 and H is 32. So now we have it set up and we can solve algebraically. So when you have when you're solving for the variable is on the trig side, on the trig identity side, what you're going to do is first convert the side ratio to a decimal. So put in 20 divided by 32 into your calculator. That's going to give you 0.625 equals the cosine of x. So again, now it's pretty much just like a regular algebra problem. And normally you would just, like if say it was like 3x there, you would just divide by 3 to cancel that out. We can't do that, but what we can do is we can use the cosine inverse to cancel out cosine. So almost think about the inverse as like you're dividing by cosine. So we're going to cosine inverse that side. And again, whatever you do to one side, you got to do the other. So that cancels out there. And then cosine inverse of 0.625. So that leaves x, because the cosines cancel out, equals the cosine inverse of 0.625. And now at this point, you can just plug that into your calculator. Cosine inverse of 0.625. And that's going to give you x equals 51.3. And that's going to be our answer. So we know that that angle there, x, is going to equal 51.3 degrees. So that's how you solve for a variable. In the next video, we're going over the inverse function in a little bit more detail.